Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this particular video and this story is about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how sometimes and many times what I'm seeing is that these companies are just filling that particular spot with just anybody. And they're filling it based on the color of one's skin versus the content of their character and their work and resume. And many of these white corporate companies, it seems to be making some big mistakes, just plugging in that particular hole. And I'm seeing a lot of these DEI positions that are being garnered and given, in particular, to black female women. We're seeing it in the legal community, we're seeing it in corporate America, and I'm not seeing very many black men, white female women who have been the number one beneficiary of the thing that was before DEI, which was affirmative action, which was supposed to be a form of reparations for African Americans since the abolishment of slavery and Jim Crow back in the day. These DEI positions are being filled, particularly with black female women. And sometimes it looks like in corporate America, they're making a mistake. And here is one where two major corporate companies picked a young lady, and she ended up having a fraud scheme and stealing from both of these major Fortune 500 companies. So let's go into it. Former Facebook and Nike diversity manager gets 5 years in prison for $5 million fraud scheme. A former diversity manager at Facebook and Nike was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in prison for stealing more than $5 million from those companies that have been earmarked for DEI initiatives, federal prosecutors said. Georgia resident Barbara Furlow Smiles, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud in the case in December, stole more than $4.9 million from Facebook, utilizing a scheme involving fraudulent vendors, fake invoices, and cash kickbacks, Atlanta U.S. Attorney Ryan Buchanan said in a statement. After being terminated from Facebook, she brazenly continued the fraud as a DEI leader at Nike, where she stole another six-figure sum from their diversity program, Buchanan said. Furlow Smiles, 38 years old, used the money she stole to fund a luxury lifestyle in California, Georgia, and Oregon, according to Buchanan's office, which asked a judge to sentence her to 6.5 years in prison. She was a lead strategist and global head of employee resource groups and diversity engagement at Facebook, the subsidiary of Meta. She was not Facebook's top executive for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Prosecutors said that while at Facebook, she linked PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App accounts to her Facebook credit cards and then used those accounts to pay her friends, relatives, and others for purported goods and services for the company that were never delivered. The vast majority of the money that went to those other people was kicked back to Furlow Smiles, prosecutors said. Prosecutors in a sentencing memo said that Meta determined that Furlow Smiles began the scheme within months of joining the company in 2017. and that an investigation found she had manipulated individuals who were close to and trusted her, including former interns who considered her a mentor. After she was fired from Facebook in mid 2021, Ms. Furlow Smiles worked for Nike from November of that year to February 2023 as Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. While there, she executed another theft scheme similar to the one she did at Facebook, prosecutors said. Furlow Smiles, who lives in Marietta and an 8-year-old daughter with her husband, was sentenced on Monday in Atlanta federal court by District Judge Stephen Grimberg, who also ordered her to pay restitution of $4.98 million to Facebook and another $121,000 to Nike. Meta previously told CNBC that the company cooperated with law enforcement in the investigation of Furlow Smiles, who must report to prison by July 22nd. Prosecutors in their sentencing memo said that in addition to the money Furlow Smiles stole from the company, Meta lost more than $4.5 million in addition to other expenses, such as attorney's fees, which were incurred as a result of Meta having to uncover and investigate her fraud scheme. As Meta notes, the harm from Furlow Smiles' criminal conduct cannot be measured purely in financial terms, prosecutors recounted in their memo. Her crimes also resulted in anguish amongst those employees that worked closely with her. Nike told prosecutors that she was entrusted as a leader for the company, that she would embody the value of doing the right thing, which is one of Nike's key maxims, the prosecutor said in their memo. As Nike explains, to say that Ms. Furlow Smiles violated our trust would be an understatement. The fraud committed by Ms. Furlow Smiles violated the trust of and devastated the employees who managed and worked with her. Nike also told prosecutors her complete lack of accountability or remorse was incredibly disappointing, according to the memo. Lance Clark, a lawyer for Furlow Smiles, said she is a great mother and a good person. When you're standing in court, you read the charges, but a lot of the time the charges don't make up the full totality of the human being, Attorney Clark said. A spokesperson for Meta declined to comment and referred CNBC to the press release issued in the case by prosecutors, and Nike did not immediately respond to the request for comment. What a sad commentary and story. And here is a clear example of a young lady who evidently got this position and garnered this position somewhat based on the requirements for DEI, black female, educated, but they didn't look at and vet the entire historical perspective of this young lady, in the sense that she ended up being allegedly and ultimately convicted of fraud. So her character was not in good standing, in alignment with maybe her resume or who she looked like and appeared to be physically to fit the requirement for DEI. She also, her and her husband was on the Breakfast Club about 3 years ago during the pandemic, where they developed a Smile Shield product, and they got interviewed on the Breakfast Club about 3 years ago, and this is where she was using some of that money that she stole from Facebook and Nike to develop her own business, and it was called the Smile Shield, which was a play on her name, her last name Smile, and her husband got interviewed on the Breakfast Club. So she was secretly stealing millions of dollars from Facebook and Nike, but she was publicly presenting herself as this professional, upstanding citizen who was working at Facebook and or Nike and her husband also had their own little business that they were trying to push forward and to monetize. So she clearly, so in the public, she's presenting herself one way, but privately, she was committing crimes of fraud and theft to some of the largest companies in the world, Facebook and Nike. Look at the hypocrisy and the dichotomy in that. And you remember I did a past video on Claudine Gay, who was the president of Harvard at the time. She fit several of the requirements for diversity and inclusion. Black, female, highly educated. She became the first black president of Harvard out of the 30 presidents of the university that have been there. And of course, is you have this duality going on with this whole DEI thing where white males, prominent white males, are totally against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you're seeing this subjugation of black females that are being pushed into these positions. And like I said, in corporate America, in education, in the legal community, and I think to a certain degree, and what we've been seeing, that there has been a slight rush to judgment by white corporate America that is placing, it seems to be almost any black semi-educated female in some of these positions, but not doing a total vetting to make sure that they're the person that is fit for the job. And when these black females or these people in these diversity, equity, inclusion positions fail, it fails us in totality as a black community, because then the white power structure can say, see, we hired this person, they failed, and then you have a situation with Barbara Furlow Smiles, who not only failed, but also committed crimes of fraud that led up to millions of dollars of loss to Facebook in particular, and Nike secondarily. And luckily, she didn't get an opportunity to steal millions of dollars from Nike. But how in the world? That tells you that many of these white corporate companies are just are making a rush to judgment and filling these positions. This young lady got by two major companies, Facebook and Nike. It's hard enough to get one job between all the vetting that takes place, criminal background check, drug test, current driver's license, whether you have a desk job and driving has nothing to do with your work. You have to have the current driver's license, drug test, background check. Some positions in corporate America, they even do a psychological profile and a test on you. So there's like 5 or 6 boxes you have to check off even to get a high paying job, especially when it comes to jobs that are paying $80,000 or $100,000 above. How in the world did Facebook and Nike miss the boat on that? I know they have thousands of employees, and here again, I think it was a rush to judgment on Nike and Facebook just to fill that slot so that they would not be harassed or questioned about what the makeup of their employment situation looks like, and do they have enough people of color, enough black women, enough black men in their organization. But I'm seeing a lot of this diversity, equity, inclusion, this DEI. These positions are being primarily filled by black women, which is fine. But where are the black men at that should be in some of these positions? I think that's very interesting. And then you, as I said, you have the white male power structure that is completely against DEI, and historically they were against affirmative action. Do I believe that there should be particular positions allocated and designed for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or affirmative action for people of color? Absolutely, yes. But let's pick the right folks. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, God-fearing way on this case dealing with Miss Barbara Furlow Smiles out of Marietta, Georgia, who got indicted and got charged and convicted for a $5 million fraud against Nike and Facebook.